That this is, one of the most ancient of countries that has been a home for so many communities and is one of the centres, really, of the birth of civilization.
Sammy Wilson.
Speaker, I think we all welcome the fall of the Assad regime, but it is important that he and his henchmen be brought to justice eventually. The problem, of course, is that, as we have seen in Iraq and Libya, the fall of a dictator swiftly like this leads to a dysfunctional state, with all of the potential for immigration, illegal immigration, terrorism, and many other problems. Is it realistic, and what can the Minister say in relation to, first of all, Britain's role in ensuring that Syria does not become a dysfunctional regime? That secondly, we prevent terrorism from moving from there into other parts of the world, and importantly, those who genuinely will have to seek asylum, what grounds can we take for dealing with those on the ground rather than pushing them in the hands of the people smugglers?
Well, the honourable gentleman centres justice at the heart of what he said, and he's absolutely right that quickly the joy will turn to an accountability for what went before, and I suspect we may see it coming out of the prisons as people begin to interrogate what happened to those 100,000 that disappeared. People will want to hold those responsible accountable, and that's understandable. He also raises the importance of the counter-terrorism issues. Daesh's ability to direct and enable and inspire attacks within our country is significant, and we've seen them behind a lot of global events. That's why we're proud of the part that we play in the global coalition against Daesh and the work that we do in northeastern Syria particularly.
Clive Eckford.
Mr. Speaker, what discussions are taking place in Turkey? Because the SDF in the north and the east of Syria are doing an important job in containing Daesh fighters, and it's essential that they're able to continue to do that. So, does the Secretary of State, Foreign Secretary, fear that the actions by Turkey may actually have a detrimental effect on the job that they're doing?
I want to reassure the my honourable friend that I've had a good working relationship with the Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan. I spoke to him yesterday. I spoke to him last week, in fact, also in Malta. And I fully expect Turkey, as a member of NATO and a close friend of our country, to continue to work together on those pressing issues, recognising the threats to Turkey, but also the threats to the United Kingdom as well.
Saqib Bhatti.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I thank the Foreign Secretary for his statement. I know it's a fast-evolving situation. In the coming days and weeks, he's going to have a think about the issue of diplomatic relations with Syria. Does he agree with me that one of the prerequisites to that relationship must be the handing over of any chemical weaponry that Assad has left behind? And will he work with the international partners to make sure that chemical weaponry is taken off the hands of anyone who wants to retain those, so it is destroyed and doesn't fall into dangerous hands?
Good point.
Well, in so many ways, this horrid story, or at least the global attention on this horrid story, begins with the use of chemical weapons. It would be fitting to see them absolutely destroyed and taken away so they can be never used again. And it has been important to seek clarification that those who have led this rebellion are working with the OPCW and have set themselves against any use of chemical weapons and the preservation of those stockpiles.
Calvin Bailey.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I want to thank the Secretary of State for his statement today, and in particular for the diligent and hard work of his ministers, in particular the Minister for the Middle East, in keeping this House appraised of the ongoing issues, as he did last week, and in the background over the weeks prior to this. Last week I urged greater awareness of how these developments in Syria are interconnected, particularly to Russia's distraction and weakness. And I think we all welcome his remarks on the escalation of these matters to a cobra and the broad coalition that we all see on the front bench, in particular noting the security implications, the Home Office for its migration flows, and his own department and the Ministry of Defence role in any stabilisation work. And could he provide me, or us, sorry, this House, with a view on his department's ability to support such a significant piece of stabilisation activity alongside other work following the disbandment of a department which was its sole role? Also, as we know, the Russians have used their presence in Syria to expand their brutal security presence in other parts of the world, in particular Africa. And I'd like to know what steps we are taking to assess how these developments will impact African states that have learned to rely on Russia for their security, and if we've extended our hand of friendship to those states so that we have the opportunity, or they have the opportunity, to avoid the manifestation of these situations. And finally...
Members have to keep their questions short. Please, Foreign Secretary.
Well, Madam Deputy Speaker, I could listen to my honourable friend all afternoon. But let me set about answering his questions. I'm very grateful that he mentioned the Honourable Member for Lincoln, because it enables me to thank him for the way that he is pursuing his role at this time, getting right across the region, right across the issue, and drawing on his own experience. He's right to raise the aid questions and how indeed that aid is spent. In the context of Syria, we are talking, sadly, about a civil society and NGOs that have been on the ground for many, many, many years. And so he can draw some confidence at the accountability in the way that we work with them. That was, for example, why we've made a further 300,000 available to the White Helmets, who have such a tremendous record. He's also right to talk about Africa and the way in which Russia has used Syria as a staging post for its actions in Russia. Of course, we're making the necessary assessments of that capability now that Russia has retreated.
Sheikh Bal Mohammed.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm grateful to the Secretary of State for his statement. I welcome his confirmation of the continuation of UK humanitarian aid to the people of Syria. I also welcome his commitment that the future governance of Syria must be decided by the Syrian people and not by foreign actors. Does the Foreign Secretary agree with me that a safe, secure, stable and prosperous Syria is not only in the interests of the Syrian people, but also in the interests of Britain? And will he commit the UK to taking all possible steps to support the peaceful transition to such a Syria?
I'm very grateful to the honourable gentleman, and yes, I can confirm that.
Nadia Whitton.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I welcome the long overdue fall of Assad's murderous regime and recognise the joy, hope and also trepidation that so many Syrians are now feeling. It's disgraceful that the first thought of some has been to call for Syrian refugees to be forced to return, while the hard-right Austrian government has suspended family reunification and talked of resuming deportations. Will the government pledge its continued support to those who have fled Syria and made their home in the UK, and their freedom to choose whether they return or remain here?
I do think it's important, and my honourable friend is right to raise these issues, to remember that Syrians have now been in this country for many, many years indeed. Their lives are here, their children have been born here. These are just not the first issues that come to mind, but also to recognise that it's neighbouring countries, Lebanon, Turkey, Jordan, that bear the biggest amounts of displaced people who have had to flee Syria at this time. And we can see from the scenes in the region that Syrians are wanting to go back, are desperate to go back, and we should support them to do that and the public services that they will no doubt need.
Neil Shastri-Hurst.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I'm grateful to the Foreign Secretary for his statement today. No one should grieve the demise of Assad, who was propped up for far too long by Russia and Iran.